So Bitcoin Cash, here is update as requested by NKD 11. He thought maybe he could see maybe a cup and handle pattern. By the way, any of you who are trying to look for patterns, if you're not sure, please do feel free to post. I'll be happy to see if I can confirm or comment on it. So even if you try to do an Elliott wave count, let's say, and you're not sure, mark it, post it, and I'll be happy to comment. This really would be truly making it a more of a two-way interaction. And also it'll give you all interested an opportunity to have an interactive session of getting feedback on not only how to maybe learn how to count the Elliott waves and mark it correctly according to the rules, but also allow me to work with you on how to identify the patterns too. Okay, so feel free to post that, just like NKD has. So here's a chart. He thought over the past few days he was seeing, or maybe a possibility of, a cup and handle. And I think maybe he was talking about this, I'm assuming. Okay. If that is the case, I can see how this can look like it, but really on a rounding bottom, it has to look more bottomish, roundish. This jutting out is a little too much of a asymmetrical. Because if you took this rounding bottom and pretty much cut it in half, you should have pretty good symmetry on both sides. Just like here, look, I can spot a head and shoulders right here. Now the symmetry here is not perfect either. But if I divide this in half, it's not that bad. Versus if I cut this in half. This side is pretty. If this was a little higher, a little more rounded, yes. The other way you can call, I think maybe you might have been talking about, maybe you were thinking about in the shorter term. Maybe this. You could. And you might have been thinking this as a handle. Yeah, that'll work. Absolutely. The only thing that's a little bit different here is too pointy. A little more roundish. If this peaks, jabbing peaks in the bottom one day, it would have been nicer. So what I see more here, if I draw a line across the tops, if I draw then a line across the bottoms, aha, what do we have here? We have an ascending right triangle. A right triangle. Draw a parallel line. And the line at which the parallel line meets the apex could be the minimum target projection. $4.89. Okay, so you can say that you have a cup and handle embedded within the ascending right triangle. And I've never heard of this term, but I'll make one up. A pregnant ascending right triangle, if you will. A very fitting term. And it is giving birth to a rise. I've used the term nested, but I've never used a pregnant ascending right triangle. But how befitting. And quite often you see flip-flops, minimum target hit here. Okay, approximately hit. And now it's flip-flopping this journey, price range. But the other thing to look out for me, is this pattern is a minnow within a big pool of patterns. And how does this minnow swimming? Is it swimming upstream against the sharks? Looks like it. Look, what are the chances of a fractal? So that minimum target is just around where the resistance line is. That makes sense. That makes sense. So until this line is breached, and it could potentially breach it, it's a bit of a wait and see game. I was hoping I can see a MACD divergence, but I didn't. Where maybe this was lower. That's okay. If you draw a few more lines, what does this also tell you? Look at the apex. It's only a few days away in journey, in time. So remember, I was telling you what happens when prices get closer to an apex in a symmetrical triangle. things become agitated. Look also, the very sharp decline in volume. This is telltale signal something's going to happen. It's going to blow up, or is it going to blow down? Symmetrical triangles are hard to tell. This is not pointing down. This isn't pointing up. It's very hard to tell. But as it gets closer to the apex, a resolution will be made. I think the bias is for the upside. And when this happens, volume will explode with it. If you want to draw different line, you can say it's channeling, but I don't think so. I think it's more befitting for a triangle.